sport. And I think selfishly from a USA Hockey standpoint, part of the reason why we want to be involved with this group, and you guys have representation on our national calls, is we're just trying to build a larger pool of elite athletes that can help us win gold medals on both the men's and women's side. And you guys have your hands on the best players in Minnesota. And so if we can just give you a couple of things to maybe think about or stimulate some thought when it comes to player development. My title is I'm Director of Player Development for USA Hockey. So I'm kind of all over the place. I work with our top players, I work with our youngest kids, I work with coaches, I work with parents. The job's kind of pretty diverse, but the optimal goal of it is to just help players get better and help our coaches and parents understand what does that look like. Because I can tell you, growing up out here, there was a lot of things that went well, but Goldie hit on it yesterday, and I think it goes along with this phrase right here, is things have changed. And things have changed dramatically when it comes to sports science and how you approach player development. And I've talked to this group, not all of you, but a good portion of you, either on Zooms or in person like this. And I would tell you, when it comes to player development, I think the physical aspect of player development is the easiest part, right? And it was funny because I talked to Nick after, and he was showing all those clips, and he goes, I hope they understand that the practice ones are the most important ones. And he firmly believes that, right? He firmly believes that what allows his players to execute what happens in the game is what happens in practice, right? But if we don't evolve, if we don't constantly reach out, it's really interesting because I'm on the board of American Hockey Coaches Association. And I've been part of that board. I coached Division I college hockey for 20 years. And when we would do presentations, or we'd have people come and speak down in Naples, Florida, you're talking about 500 coaches, men's, women's, Division I, Division III, all the club teams. I mean, there's a room just filled with coaches. And you look out there, and I had presented a couple times to that group, and it's very intimidating. But when you look out there, it's really interesting when you see Jerry York in the front row with a notepad and doesn't miss a single meeting. The winningest coach in all of college hockey. Maybe that's why, right? You know, you see coach right here. He's always in the front. He's always taking notes. Like it's really critical, I think, to understand that part of development is all of our responsibility. Because I think back to myself as a young head coach in college hockey, and I cringe. I absolutely cringe, especially with what I know now. And if I could go back and redo it again, holy cow, I think I'd be that much better. But just to evolve, just to kind of understand that there's other ways to skin the cat, right? I think it's really important to understand the modern game. It's changed a lot, right? And we know it. All of you guys played. You think back to how we played, and it's not just the skill level. It's not just the pace. It's not just the size of the athletes, but it's the mindset. How the game's coached, how the game's played at the higher levels, right? And if I showed you clip after clip, this would have been probably my era, right? With just no thought about the puck, no thought about, my responsibility as a player on the ice. It was I was going to intimidate, I was going to finish my check, right? And now you see the modern game with a guy like Lucic, who gets in, takes away the hands, takes the puck, and sets up a goal, right? 20 years ago, he would have ran that guy through the boards. So how the game has evolved from a physical standpoint is one, and how important the stick has become, how critical stick details become, right? And you watch the guys that played last night, Army and North Dakota, and then you go watch an NHL practice or even an AHL practice. I was just with the Milwaukee Admirals 3 days ago before I came up here, and watching their pro athletes, how they can catch a puck on their backhand in stride. Like that stick detail. And not just with the puck, but the stick detail without the puck. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, right? And then when you think about how the game's evolved positionally. And Dane Jackson talked about it. I could show you clip after clip after clip, NHL, of almost 10 guys in 1/3 of the rink. 10 players, 8 players right now in the picture in 1/3 of the rink. Talking about numbers around the puck. Talking about play off the puck. How we swarm. All of the decisions, all the reads. All the stuff that Nick was just talking about when he showed you those clips. Right? And why those drills he showed at the end were so critical to understanding when I go, where I go, how I go. Because I can tell you right now, if you're the person that's deciding for your athletes when they go, where they go, how they go, you're not developing players. They're just doing what you're telling them to do. And that's a big difference because you can't tell them what to do in game. Practice, you can be there, but in game time, you gotta, hey, game is players, that's their world. Practice is our world as coaches. But so how you run your practices, what you allow your players to do when it comes to making decisions, right? And that ability to kind of see that is really, really critical. I wanted to stay on this theme right here on not just positional play defensively, but now positional play offensively. So you get 2 defensemen below the hash marks. One's passing to the other one to set up the goal, right? And I think about when I played, played high school hockey out here for phenomenal coaches. But there was, I'm going to cover the far post, and I got a flashlight in my butt, and I'm going to cover the far post. If I'm the lefty, I'm not going anywhere near the corner over there on the other side of the rink, right? I'm going to the blue line. If I drift in, and God forbid I give up that breakaway or that 2-on-1. Because our mindset as coaches always goes to, how do I make sure we don't get scored against? But the modern thinking coaches think about, how am I going to score goals? We may give up 3, but how do I get 4? Right? Because the defensive side of the game is the easiest part to coach. The offensive side of the game is really difficult, extremely difficult. And it was interesting because I was able to coach a couple of the kids that played for North Dakota. The one kid, his first game last night, I got a chance to talk to him yesterday at the rink. Levinovich, that's a little defenseman, number 4. And he's super, super creative. And I talked to Brad, and he's super excited about the kid. He's on the second power play already, and just watching him play, he's gonna give you some heartburn. You gotta almost watch him with one eye covered sometimes. But man, when you do see him with 2 eyes, there's some special stuff happening there, right? There's some really special stuff happening there. And how do we create that mentality? How do we allow that culture and environment to get into particularly our practice environment, right? I think the other thing, and probably the most important thing for me and for us at USA Hockey, is what does practice look like? You guys, and Mike Sneeg said it yesterday, Minnesota has by far the best culture we have in the United States when it comes to development. By far, it's not even close. I live out east. I left Apple Valley, Minnesota, and went to the University of Maine, and I stayed out east ever since. And I can tell you that the numbers he threw up there are exactly right. And part of the reason why you guys have a great environment, particularly in high school hockey, is your model's very similar to the college model, where you have your 2 games a week, but you've got your 4 practices a week, or 5. And I can tell you, this kid's at the same age that you're coaching out east, and I was just with a Tier 1 organization, the Junior Admirals in Milwaukee. They're lucky if they get 2 practices a week. Now think about that. 2 practices a week at the age of 15, 16, 17. That's a death nail. Player development's not happening. It's just not happening. But I would say to you, the challenge I would throw to you from USA Hockey and as a former Minnesotan is, don't just rely on your culture. Because you have a great culture, how do we take it a step further, right? You guys have 64 players in the NHL with about 50,000 kids playing youth hockey. Sweden's got 113 with about 41,000 kids playing youth hockey. Finland, with about 12,000 fewer kids than playing in Minnesota, has the same exact number playing in the NHL as Minnesota. Why? Why is that? Not that they do things spectacularly well. They have to be like that. They have to be like that. Why do they have to be like that? Because they're playing against the United States, Canada, Russia. We have millions of people. We have money. We have facilities. If they're going to compete with us in international play in the Olympics, World Junior, World under 18s, they have to be so good at player development. So what do they do at the age of 14? They get 8 practices a week. Not 2, not 4. They're doubling up, right? Before school and after school. And their practices are geared towards, in the morning, individual player development, in the evening, team concepts, right? So think about that over a 4 or 5 year period. You're gonna make hockey players. It's not a secret recipe. The more emphasis I put on practice, the better my practices are. The more quality I put in that arena, the better my players are gonna get, right? And I mentioned this, I think, to you guys last year, and I still stand by this, and I think it's because I'm talking from experience for myself. When you get mad at them on Saturday or Friday evening or Thursday night, depending on when you play, because of the mistakes they make or because of some of their habits, I challenge you to look at yourself first and say, is it the players or is it me? Because I can guarantee you, as I travel around the world and I evaluate practice with some of the best coaches in the world, even some of the best coaches in the world, some of the small details that they miss in practice, because their mindset when I go to the rink for practice is I'm running practice, right? And when you run practice, when you're in the woods, sometimes you don't see the trees because you're right in the middle of the battle. You're blowing the whistle, you're moving the puck, you're concerned about all the stuff, you're trying to watch everything. It's almost impossible. So what you're allowing to happen in your practice over and over and over again is that actually coming back to haunt you in the game day. And I can tell you absolutely 100% yes. And so the challenge I throw to you guys as coaches, is what does your practice look like, right? And so does your practice look like the first 2? Or does your practice look like the third? Because I can tell you right now, the first 2 are pretty darn easy. I could probably pull it off. Right? I'm not a jiu-jitsu guy, but some coach could tell me, hey, get in there, keep your head up, grab at the waist, turn and flip. But if the guy wants to push back, now what do I do? Now I've just elevated. So I would say to you that if true player development's happening, you gotta be number 3 as much as you can. And that's what Nick was talking about with his drills. The 5 elements of a good practice. Fun. And I can tell you this, we've done a lot of research on fun. Fun is not what you think it is. When we ask kids and have done research on fun, there's a thing called fun maps that one of our coworkers was a part of the research at the university level. The number 1 thing for fun is competition. Kids love to compete. So if I can put them in game-like situations where there's constant decision making, right? Where there's challenge, where there's touches, and there's fun, those 5 elements, player development's exploding, right? And so I challenge you to get to this 3rd one as often as you can. Because otherwise you're determining when, why, and how. And when you determine that, player development plateaus. Along with that, I would challenge you to reflect after every practice. If I went back and I was coaching full time, there's a couple things that I would do. 1, I would have somebody on my staff or a friend or somebody come, or I would go back with the video stuff that we have now in rinks, and I would evaluate my own practice. Because I have a focus for that day. And I think I delivered it, but do I know I delivered it? How do I know that? I activity track my practice. How many touches did they get? How many decisions did they have to make? Right? How much feedback was each player given? How much skating did they get? How much activity did they get? How much board time was there? A good friend of mine, I've mentioned him before to a lot of you, is Marty St. Louis. I coached him. I've known him since he was 15. He's the head coach of Canadians. I talked Marty into putting in a system into their practice facility. And I said, don't do it for the players. Don't evaluate the players in practice. Evaluate yourself. Evaluate your coaches. Figure out if what you're doing is actually going to have a positive impact on game day. Go back and reflect. Challenge yourself. How are you getting better? How are you? We expect our players to give us a certain amount of everything and every day they step on the ice for practice. What about us? What's our responsibility? And who's judging that? I would activity track every one of my practices. And if my focus that day was on defensive concepts, I can change these categories: explanation, skating, passing, shots, puck handling, coaching, feedback. I can change these to whatever I want on a given day based on what I'm trying to deliver on that day. Special teams, whatever it is, whatever the concept or the theme of that day's practice is, did I actually deliver that? Or did I just check a box? And now I feel better because as the coach, I think that was my theme for today. And then I get mad at them on Saturday because they're not doing it right or it didn't work. Well, if I go back and look at practice, how was it working there? Did we attack it properly, right? The other thing I would do, and Goldie kind of talked about it yesterday a little bit, is I would have a touches chart. Because what I found, if I look back, the amount of feedback my top players got was sometimes too much. Were we in the faces of our top players too often? And how about those kids that are on the fourth line? How about our backup goaltender? Who's having conversations with them? Who's talking to them? Let's think about what Brian Riley talked about, which maybe been the most important message the entire weekend. Who's having conversations about their well-being, about their family? Are we getting to all of our athletes consistently? And I would tell you, probably if you go back and look at it, probably not nearly enough. And maybe some kids too much. And I guarantee you the players know that. They know the head coach talked to so-and-so and so-and-so every day this week. I haven't heard from the head coach in a month. Where does that put me emotionally and mentally? So I would have a touches chart. I would have something like this where me and my assistants and other staff members, hey, who did you talk to today? Let's just write it down on a sheet. Let's make sure we're getting to everybody every week. Okay? Really important stuff. Really, really important stuff. I wanted to get into a little bit of practice stuff now. And Nick talked about it today. But when I go back to this, is it the players or is it the coaches? And I think about this compared to this, right? And I think about this and all the stuff that's so critical to running a quality program when it comes to player development. What does that look like? And so I was fortunate enough, I shared some videos I think with you guys in the past, last year, it would have been just about 3 weeks ago, last year, with the University of Nebraska Omaha, and I ran 4 days of practices for them. And we videotaped all of it so that we could use it for stuff like this. And so I just did a bunch of games, a bunch of things that force those 5 elements: fun, constant decision making, game-like situations, challenges, and touches, right? So a little game. I like to move the nets for, to me, two variables that are really important for you in practice is space and time. Space and time, okay? Because if I go back to this, and I run a 3-on-2 that lasts for 30 seconds, and then I get mad on Saturday because nobody wants to attack the front, they'll go on a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 and they'll spin themselves in the corner. You're like, why didn't somebody attack the middle? Why didn't somebody go to the net? Well, because coach, you give us 30 seconds to practice, and we know we have time. It's your fault, not mine. A sense of urgency, right? How do we get that sense of urgency? We put time limits on things, right? And we change the spacing. The reason for me to move the nets once in a while is so that they can't cheat spacing. Because a lot of our players go to the top of the circle, they go to the blue line, they go to the goal line, they go to the hash mark. They use the markings, they cheat spacing. The spacing isn't a read. The spacing isn't how far away am I from my opponent? Where's my teammates? Where's the puck? I'm gonna cheat spacing based on the markings of the ice, right? And we know that that's not gonna work in a game. Because the top of the circle doesn't score a goal. Top of the circle is not gonna make a pass to me. I'm not supporting the top of the circle, I'm supporting their teammate, right? So this is just a little game, 3-on-3 in the middle. Players for the blue team on the outside, players for the red team on the outside. You can only have the puck on your stick for a second. And I got a coach over here with a pile of pucks. And my two favorite words, which you guys have heard before, is new puck. Because if you break a rule, I'm taking the puck away from you. Okay? I'm taking the puck away from you. I'm not gonna let you do something I know is not gonna be beneficial to you or us over and over and over again. I'm gonna yell new puck. Because 98% of the game's played without the puck. And if you aren't good at getting it back, you're useless. You're useless. So, if I'm gonna run a power play drill, I'm not giving the power play the puck. I'm gonna give the penalty killers the puck, and I'm gonna make the power play get it back. And then we'll get into our format. Then we'll get into our movement. Because retrievals in the game of ice hockey is everything right now. That's another opportunity. That's effort. That's hard work. You want to build that culture? You want to build a culture of hard work and effort in your practice? Then I'm going to jump ahead. It's never your turn in hockey. It's never your turn to have the puck. Best thing about the sport. It's not like basketball, every team scores, oh, it's our turn, we get the ball. Football, oh, the other team scored, we get the ball. Hockey, other team scores, you gotta win it. You gotta earn it. But so many of our practices, oh, the blue team scored, it's the red team's, it's their turn to get the puck. Oh, we're gonna work on the power play. Power play makes a bad play, makes a bad read, forces a bad play. You know, Johnny Hockey's out there, he's trying to toe drag somebody pokes up the stick. Penalty kill gets it. Oh, give it back to Johnny Hockey. Who's the problem? Johnny Hockey or us, the coach, right? And so I want you to really think about that as you design these practices. But here we go, it's a little 3-on-3, right? The players on the outside can't be pressured. Players on the outside can't shoot. They can pass the puck up and down the line, right? And red's working this way, blue's working this way.
Is that a goalie out there?
It's a goalie playing, yeah. So Chris talked to you the other day, right? I was fortunate enough, I'm really fortunate in college hockey to have some phenomenal goalies. Probably the best one was Timmy Thomas. And we made Timmy do everything in practice. If we played a game, we had a third, in college you have the benefit of a third, sometimes 4 goalies now. So why would you have them standing off the side? They're gonna compete. They're gonna be in the line, moving the puck, and they're gonna compete. They're gonna play, they're gonna skate, they're gonna have some fun. Right? So those 5 elements for your goaltenders are just as important as the 5 elements for your players. And so the rule is you have to use it's all play off the puck. If I have it, I gotta get it to somebody and I gotta get open to get back. Right? It's not to play with the puck. 99% of the games played without the puck, yet 99% of our feedback to our players is what they do with the puck. Think about that. Think about all the drills you do, all the times you go to talk to a kid, give them feedback. It's usually what they did with the puck. It was their decision with the puck, right? But yet that's only 2% of the game. So how are we making hockey players if we're not giving them feedback on what they do or force them to play off the puck? The art of coaching, handicap your best players. You got your top players in practice, don't let them go one-on-one against the weaker kid. Make them go 1 against 2. Make your best players play without the puck. Make them play off the puck. Make them earn the puck back. Now you're really, because you know, a super skilled player who's got great hands, great feet, but doesn't compete, doesn't play hard off the puck, that's going to drive you nuts. But are you creating that player through how you run your practices and all the feedback and the coaching you do? It's just a fun game. But here's the beauty of this. How do you evolve this to make it? Because to me, practice needs to be emotionally and mentally uncomfortable. If it's not uncomfortable for your athletes, there's no player development happening. They've already got the answers to the test. You got to get them out of their comfort zone. And so how do you do that? This is kind of easy because I could be reinforcing a really bad habit here. Anybody have any idea? It's based on the format of the drill. What bad habit could I be forcing with players with the puck and players off the puck? How can they cheat the system? Anybody have a thought? If I'm the blue team, where do I know my blue players are? They're on my left side, because I'm going this way. So if I have the puck, what can I do with it if I'm under duress? I can throw it to the left side of the rink. I don't have to look. I don't have to pick my head up. The player on the left side of the rink doesn't have to move to support it. I know I got to bail out on the left side, right? So I'm forcing a blind pass. I'm forcing just a bailout. So how do I solve that problem? Well, I stagger it. 1 red, 1 blue, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 red, 1 blue. So I'm not the problem. So now I got to pick my head up and I space those guys out. I got to pick my head up and find my teammate. I can't just throw it to a spot. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about who's the problem. Because some of the drills we do, some of the things we do actually force the wrong thing to happen. We haven't thought about it, right? Any questions? And off this format, you can do this a million different ways. You can make it bigger space, you can make it smaller space. Everybody's involved in the drill, right? There's nobody that's in line or waiting. I let them play for about 20, 30 seconds. The red team, they bail out and go here. The next 3 jump in. And the only time there's any kind of change or anything is new puck. And that's when the puck misses the net, somebody overhandles, somebody misses a pass on the outside. And when I give my instructions to the coaches, if we throw a new puck out, we're probably going to throw it to somebody in line who's not paying attention. And I'm going to give the puck to the team that was on defense, not on offense. Punishment in my practice is if you do things wrong, you don't work hard and you don't execute, you have to defend. That's your punishment. I'm taking the puck away. The reward for hard work, good decisions, good execution is you get offensive opportunities. So a little one-on-one. Think about all the one-on-ones we do. Think about the reads and decisions. Chris, goaltending coach from Army yesterday, talked about hockey IQ for goaltenders. And yet, do we do things where they're forced to make reads? Or is the shooting that we're doing is already a predetermined pattern? They know where the shot's coming from. They know who's going to shoot it. So they don't have to make a read. So they're just going to get out of their aim. They know where they're going to go before the shot's even, 10 seconds before the shot's even going to happen. Right? And so a little one-on-one. And so these guys are going to play a little pass. These guys are going to play a little pass. First whistle, these guys are going to attack. Second whistle, these guys are going to attack. Nobody knows who's on offense. Nobody knows who's on defense, especially the goalie. It's whoever has the puck when the whistle blows. And then you got to read off that. Right? So that's how we're going to do our one-on-one down low. So these guys are passing. Whistle blows. Red had it. He's on the inside. Much different if the puck was on the outside. These guys are passing. Whistle blows. They don't know who has it. Now they got to read off of it. And I can go to 3-on-3, I can go to 4-on-4, I can go to 5-on-5. But nobody knows who's on defense, nobody knows who's on offense, and the patterns change. Now the beauty of this is I can have them set up like they are now. I can have one kid facing the boards, one kid facing out. I can have them this way, I can have a guy here, I can have a guy here. I can do this any way I want. But it's not the setup, it's not the drill, it's the mindset that I'm not determining who's on offense and defense. The players have to read based on the situation. I'm giving them responsibility of reads to everybody. The goaltender, the players with the puck, the players off the puck. Simple, but in delivery for making decisions and forcing kids out of their comfort zone, really effective, okay? Because oftentimes we do one-on-ones where there's the predetermined defender, predetermined offensive player, predetermined space. And that only gets you so far. Because we know in the game of ice hockey that that's constantly changing. Secondly, if you're gonna do possession, I'm gonna take what Nick talked about and take it a step further. If you're gonna do possession, if you're gonna do some type of owning the puck, winning the puck, at some point you have to have an objective of where you're trying to go with it. And that's the net or a target. Because otherwise, I'm the problem as the coach, because what I do, I force players to learn how to use bad ice. They'll cycle themselves in the corner all day to keep possession. But there's gotta be a purpose to get to the net. There's gotta be a purpose to get somewhere. Because when I put in a purpose to get to a tire or to get to a net or a scoring objective, that changes the defensive mindset and that changes the offensive mindset. And it changes all the play off the puck. Because my responsibility offensively is to run routes. And I run routes for two reasons. One is to support the puck, and two, to draw people out of the good space. To pull defenders out. That's why movement off the puck and routes are so critical. But if I play keep away, or it's just possession in a space, I turn my back, keep it over here, spin in the corner all day, and as a defender, I'm gonna go ahead, spin yourself to death. You're gonna get a little bit tired, I'm gonna force you, I'm gonna take away your hands like Lucic did, and we're going the other way. And I got you on the backside of me, right? So think that just little stuff like that, I think is really important. Talking about stick detail earlier, I want you to think about how do we work on, again, a one-on-one, how do we work on spacing and gap? How do we work on surfing? How do we work on our defensemen? One of my former players is the assistant coach of the Admirals. He's their defensive coach. And he was talking about surfing. He was talking about how he wants to get his defensemen. This kid played with Yossi. How do I get defensemen to think about defending going forward? Right? How do I get on top of people? How do I constantly play on top of people? Because and I thought Army did a really good job last night, especially in the first. They were on top of North Dakota. Like they smothered them. They were on top of them early, and North Dakota couldn't handle it. Like they kind of melted down a little bit there early in the game. Then they kind of got that gap, that opening for about 5 minutes, and then the floodgates opened up, which was what Brian was worried about yesterday when he was here. But how do we get on top of people in practice, right? And so this is a simple little drill. We have a pile of pucks. Defender, offensive player. Doesn't matter what this could be. This could be a defenseman. This could be a forward. Doesn't matter. Coach says go. They skate to a line which is drawn right here, and then they turn back to either pile. Right? If I determine you're going to go to the one pile, now all the patterns, all the angles is determined by me. Because what you want this player to learn how to do is deception. I'm going to sell some misinformation so I can create some gap offensively for myself. This player's got to read the right information. He's got to read toes, he's got to read hips, he's got to read shoulders, stick, and now he's got to get up on top of that player. But he's going to use his stick to cut the rink in half and force the player to the bad ice, which is what Nick was talking about this morning. Okay? Now, this drill can progress from just a one-on-one. I always like to add another player here who's an outlet for the offensive player. Because I also want to see my defender play defense off the puck, not just on the puck. Okay? So whistle blows. Down, stop, get up. Stick. One-on-one. Now new puck. New puck. And they can go to either pile again. Got to close. Now puck goes out. Shot. Box out. Use your stick to defend. Keep the player to the outside. How do I defend somebody when their back's to me? Really hard to do in today's game. You can't do like that one clip I showed you where you run them in the boards. Right? You got to contain. You got to wait till you can get to their hands. So I can progress this little drill from this little one-on-one to an outlet to a two-on-two to a three-on-two. I can do whatever I want off this. But here's the key: spacing and time. Spacing and time. I'm only going to let this go for a little bit because I don't want my offensive player to think they can just turn their back and spin themselves, to bad ice. And I also want my defender to try to win the game. So every drill we do, the defender wins the puck. If they get it to coach, then they win the drill, right? Always allow the defensive side of the game to win the drill as well. Really critical piece. I talked about this already. It's never your turn in hockey. Can you do more things where it's you have to earn that opportunity, right? I want you to watch this clip, and I'll talk about the drill itself after, but I want you to watch one of these players from, now let me pick them out here. So it's a little power play game. I'll talk about the game in a second. Don't focus on the game right now. I want you to focus on this. Just wait, gotta let this play out a little bit. It's actually not this clip, it's the next clip. My bad. So it's one of the red kids coming out here. And like I said, I'll go back and talk about the game in a second. But the rule is, one of the penalty killing team, the 4 red, are trying to get the puck and get it back to a teammate back here. But watch, I think it's this young man here. He ends up getting the puck. But the rule is, the puck has to go across the goal line to your teammate. You can't just throw it. It's got to be a good play. So he wins it. He does his Johnny Hockey thing, right? Comes all the way down here, keeps coming, throws it down, but Blue turns it over before it gets to the goal line. Now look what he does. He comes right over to me. He's all upset because he's still got to defend, right? Look at him. He's completely disengaged. He's still yelling at me. I had the puck. He's completely given up. He gives up a goal. He's still yelling at me. He's still upset. He's coming over here. He's like, well, I had the... I'm like, no. It's not your turn, son. You have to get the puck over the goal line. That's the rule. So my point is, when you, and then he does that, then he takes a penalty, right? So he just exacerbates everything because emotionally, he was a mess. This same practice I ran, I told the red team before we started practice, I said, I want you all to know I'm going to cheat for the blue team today. They're like, what do you mean? I go, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to make a bad call. I'm going to give them a goal. I'm going to do something to benefit the blue team. And this same kid's like, didn't understand it. So we're playing another game, and I made a call. I said, as a penalty, give the puck to the blue team. He lost his mind. And now the head coach of the team's looking at me. I'm like, this is exactly why you have to do this stuff in practice. You have to make your players uncomfortable, emotionally and mentally. It's got to be safe. It's got to be positive. And the other players are laughing. They're giggling because they know they know that this kid is the one kid that if somebody gives him a tap on the back of the calf or gives him a little, says something to him, he's going to lose his mind and take a stupid penalty. But you got to deal with that in practice. Otherwise, it comes back to haunt you in the game. And you got to deal with it. I'm not going to bail him out. I'm going to make his teammates teach him that, listen, I'm sick of defending. I'm sick of having to do this because of you. Smarten up. Let's get this thing going right. So the game itself, okay, is you got one team here, one team here. The nets are up again because especially on power play and penalty kill, I find players' spacing is a mess. Like their spacing is a mess. And partly because of the zone, right? So blues on PK, I think I've showed you guys this before, but blues on PK, reds on power play. Blue's got a 5th player down here behind the goal line. And the rule is, because we want to work on retrievals, if the puck is shot and misses the net, or Blue gets it, instead of firing it down the ice, they're going to give it back. Now the reward for hard work, good decision making, good execution is an opportunity to be in the power play. So everybody's going to get power play time, everybody's going to get penalty kill time. When I was coaching college hockey, I'd have all my power plays in one color and my other guys on the other color. And then usually, inevitably, the other color was always better in practice than the power play. Because they were going to say, hey coach, watch this. You don't think I can play on a power play? I'm going to show you I can play on a power play. We used to work on pulling the goalie on this same exact drill too, 6-on-5 play. But the rule is when the puck goes back and gets over the goal line, because we want these guys to hunt the puck until it's over the goal line. If it gets over the goal line, the player here, and I can put any rule I want. I can say, hey, 3 guys have to get back inside the top of the circle. You can stretch 1 guy. You can change the format any way you want to work on your power play breakout. The punishment for the red team to turn the puck over is they've got to change. The next 4 players come out to kill, and the 5th player for them goes behind the goal line. So you go from penalty kill, win the puck, reward, power play, bad turnover, the other team wins it, punishment, I'm out of the game. The next time I come in, I'm coming in on the defensive side of the game. So it's never my turn. I have to earn my turn on the power play. Okay, and you can just see it as it plays out. Right now, red's on power play. Blue's gonna turn it over and give it back to their 5th guy. Even if a missed shot by the net goes all the way down, it's a turnover. And you can see the spacing and how they learn how to read the spacing from their teammates. So now Blue performs a breakout, they set up, and then this is when the meltdown happens. But you can see the players will figure out some of their spacing. Like right now, if Blue turns that over, I can have a discussion with them on their spacing. I can have a discussion with them on their play off the puck. I can have a discussion with them on movement, right? Because they're standing still. Because there's no whistles. There's no whistles in the game. It's just constant transition. Anytime you play a game in practice or do some type of keep away, try to force some type of transition, okay? Make it, take it, it's never your turn with the puck. Blue team scores, they get the puck again. We're not giving it to the red, they gotta win the puck, right? So just that mentality in practice, I think, is really critical. That's my email address, that's my cell phone number. I'm here to support. If you want anything, you want this, you want to have a discussion. I was out a month ago and spoke to the hockey directors for youth hockey in Minnesota. They had an event down in Plymouth. And I did a presentation, not quite like this, but somewhat similar on player development. And I told the associations, if you want to do a Zoom call, call me. I've done 3 Zoom calls in the state with their entire association, their coaches, parents and players on player development. If I can be of any help in any way, you have a phenomenal human being out here as well as Guy Goslin, couldn't be here this weekend. But Goose is just an unbelievable person, great hockey mind. Use him as a resource as well. Big time high school hockey fan. All of you, most of you know him. But we're here to help support. We would love to see other parts of the country have what you have. It's not that horse isn't going back in the barn, unfortunately. But don't just rely on that. Be really good. When you step through the door every day, be the best you can be, right? I call it spinal tap. Make sure your amps go to 11, right? An 8 amps good, but 11's louder. That's what I was told. Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? Anybody have, doesn't have to be about this, it could be about anything. Some of our rules, you want to yell at me, go ahead. I wish you all the best.
Great stuff.